Good to see you all this morning. This is an unusual day. It is an unusual day. Today, things will be different than they have been in recent weeks. So let me begin by welcoming you to Westside Unitarian Universalist Church. I am the Reverend Carol Badeau. I am privileged to serve here as minister. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. We are a congregation that gathers to try to build the world we dream of by doing all sorts of things. Sometimes we are celebrating, sometimes we are being activists, and sometimes we're being a little bit silly, which is what we're going to be today. So you'll see that the chairs are arranged in the form of a theater. They were that way for the concert last night, but it is also theater this morning. And I'm going to ask, in a minute, Chris, would you be willing to light our chalice when we're ready to do that? Thank you. You may need this. Silly, we're so busy preparing the play, we haven't prepared all the things. A couple of announcements before we begin our performance this morning. Some of you may know that today is a congregational meeting after this service. The play is supposed to help you prepare for that, so pay close attention, okay? All right. Flower communion is next week. Our Easter celebration is going to include our annual flower communion. So for flower communion, what we're going to do is we're going to invite everyone to bring flowers with you, and you'll leave them in our large bouquets in the center of the room, and you will leave the building with different flowers than you arrived with. And finally, last announcement just connected to our congregational meeting today. For those of you who are relatively new to Westside, we have two congregational meetings. We start with a congregational meeting where we talk about who's going to be on the board next year and what our budget might look like. Then in May, we have a formal vote on our budget. And in between those, we have an opportunity to celebrate. We have a Canvas kickoff party. And just note that that will be on April 7th. So in 2 weeks, our regular first Sunday potluck will be our Canvas kickoff celebration. So we're going to combine the bowl, if I can find it. It seems to have, oh, there it is. We're going to combine the bowl and the chalice this morning because this is a day for things to go a little wild. So as Chris lights the chalice and I invite the bowl to sound, I'm just going to invite you to get in the spirit of playfulness. All right, today is an unusual day. Today we're having what's called a Purim Spiel. So the Purim Spiel is a tradition that goes back hundreds of years and it's actually considered one of the original forms of theater, perhaps the original folk theater from Europe. It integrates various forms, sometimes of music or dance or mime or text or just acting, and it's actually considered the origin of Yiddish theater. The term Purim Spiel, this is a German term, Spiel means play. Purim, for Purim, the Jewish holiday of Purim, it's been around for a long time, and they started using that phrase in the 1500s. It is a form that is used by Ashkenazi Jews, and Purim Spiels have evolved into broad-ranging social commentaries, which are usually satirical, and were for a long time considered inappropriate for synagogues. So the way a Purim Spiel works is a Purim Spiel takes the story of Queen Esther from the book of Esther, And it turns it into a play, sometimes a musical. I've seen them done as, you know, like the musical Grease or like the musical Oklahoma, or you pick your thing. We've seen all kinds of different versions of Purim Spiels. And it uses that story to make commentary on contemporary social issues. Now, it used to be that this was considered inappropriate to be in the synagogue, so originally a lot of these were done in the courtyards of synagogues, but now many synagogues will actually have Purim Spiels as a big thing that they do in the synagogue every year. As a matter of fact, they often have very elaborate casts, that there's a lot of preparation and rehearsals and music and costuming and all sorts of things. So I'm going to give you the basic plot of the story of Esther and the basic plot of the Purim Spiel, so that you'll have something to put that framework on top of when we do our version of it, which is set at West Side in our times. So here's the story from the Jewish scriptures of Queen Esther. Sometimes it's followed very closely in the play, and sometimes it's followed not closely at all, quite loosely, which is what we're doing. It always, though, involves a struggle for equity and representation with some sort of conquering ruler and an oppressed people. So here's the basic plot, minus a lot of the gorier, crueler, nastier, more militaristic parts. There's a king. His name is Ahasuerus. He is Persian, and he's the ruler of a land in which many Jewish people live. Ahasuerus gets angry at his queen, Vashti, for refusing to do what he asks her to do, and so he interviews new queens to take her place. Now, at the urging of her uncle Mordecai, Esther, who is a sort of demure Jewish woman, interviews or dances for the role of the queen, and is chosen while keeping secret that she is Jewish, because of course that's the oppressed minority in the kingdom. Esther and her uncle Mordecai plot to make the king kinder and more accepting of the oppressed Jews. In the process, they managed to thwart an attempt on the king's life, vanquish the evil advisor, who's the character that everybody loves to hate in this play. In the original story, his name is Haman, and he wants all the Jews killed. And in the original story, they managed to change the law of the land to allow the Jews to have not really equal rights, but more rights. That basic story also involves a lot of typical Old Testament or the older scriptures, vengeance and killing. There's a lot of bloodshed and war and some racism and some pretty awful stuff. If you were with us last week, you heard me discussing how sacred texts can be used to affirm life or to harm life. There's a little bit of both in this original story. Today, we're going to do the life-affirming version. There's a lot of gems of moral and philosophical value that can be taken from this story. After all, Purim Spiels have for centuries been used to address the concerns of their times. They've been adapted to address social and cultural conflict, even particular public figures that were relevant to the audiences when the spiel was being played. Today's Purim Spiel is a Purim, P-U-U-R-I-M spiel. There's going to be a lot of really bad jokes, so just like practice now. It's a Purim-Spiel. And we're adapting it to our broader cultural context and also to West Side in particular. So feel free, as you listen to the things these people say, to extrapolate wildly to West Side's context. I will be helping you by making some little asides and eye winking and things like that, okay? Now, I'm going to, as I introduce the characters, I'm going to invite them to just let you know who they are, each one in turn, and they may have a particular line that they say that's their standard line. So, in the place of King Ahasuerus, we have, please come forward, King Ahasuerus, who as leader of the community can sometimes be overwhelmed and is under constant pressure from too many opposing forces. His standard line is, please hold.
We must do what's right. What should we do?
Instead of the vanquished queen in our story, that happens to be the Queen of Coffee, come on up, the Queen I Want Tea. Instead of Vashti, the Queen of Coffee, we have Queen I Want Tea who says,
I want tea.
in the role of the heroic leader of the oppressed minority who here, instead of Jews, are lemonade lovers. Are you getting the, just let me point this out. The theme is coffee versus tea and lemonade. So the leader of the oppressed minority who are the lemonade lovers is the noble more to try.
Peace between sweet and tart.
Thank you. As the evil and nefarious Haman, we have the snarky Haman supported by his committee for keeping things the way they were.
Only hot and bitter.
Thank you.
She should have been an
And instead of plotting servants, we have the Committee for Confabulation and Contrarianation who always say,
We don't like anything. We need to stop them.
thank you very much. And finally, in the place of the great Queen Esther, we have the independent and well-trained in compassionate communication, Queen We Can Do Better, who says,
We can do better.
thank you very much. And so the play begins. The auction party. Some of you might have been here for it. In the days after COVID, during the reign of King That's Too Gauche, the members of Westside UU Church decided to celebrate the abundance of the kingdom by holding a party in which they would trade goods and services and cold cash to demonstrate the thriving economy and culture. Things were going so well that even, this is where you start to go, oh, we're talking about Westside. Things were going so well that even credit cards and QR codes had become acceptable modes of currency in the land. This was an auction party.
Welcome to my party, everyone.
To prove how wonderful things were, the king called upon his queen to pass out coffee, the official drink of the land, to all of the guests, but to everyone's shock, the queen refused.
I won't pass out coffee. I want tea.
And she took off her crown and marched away. She marched out of the room indignant and in truth. Now, some of the people were slightly confused by this. The king called upon his advisors from the committee for keeping things the way they were to see what should be done about the queen.
Make her help with coffee hour every week.
Make her serve on every committee.
And make her arrange and rearrange and rearrange and rearrange the chairs in the back hall.
Does that sound familiar, anybody? But the lead advisor, hey man, had the best idea.
Make her read the history of the entire kingdom, the whole thing. That will teach her to try to change things.
King That's Too Gauche thought this last idea was the best idea.
Make it so.
And so the safety team went to make sure that Queen I Want Tea read the history. Now, little did they all realize that this plan would ultimately backfire, because as we all know, a little education about the past can be a powerful thing. But more on that later. So Queen I Want Tea was vanquished to the royal library to read the entire history of the kingdom. But that left King That's Too Gauche with a problem. He needed a new queen. Scene 2, the auditions. So King That's Too Gauche and his advisors from the committee for keeping things the way they were met to figure out how to replace the queen. For they needed someone in charge of making sure coffee remained the official and esteemed drink of the land. After all, these were dangerous times. The queen had explicitly and publicly proclaimed her loyalty to tea of all things.
We must do what's right. What should we do?
To make the situation even more dire, there was a strong subculture rising in the kingdom that threatened the supremacy of the beloved coffee. And these heretics loved lemonade. That's right, lemonade. But the advisors, including their leader, Haman, were of one voice.
Only hot and bitter.
Let us find a queen who will honor the sacred coffee.
So they called in many candidates, all of whom wanted to be coffee queen. Now, who wants to be a candidate for coffee queen? We have some candidates, but if you would like to be a candidate for coffee queen, this is your chance. The candidates were paraded in front of the king, who looked at them all with consternation. None of them pleased the king. But in the end, it was the unassuming we can do better who caught the king's attention. She seemed so demure and compliant. Like she would go along with whatever the king wanted, right? Does that seem like this person? She's going to do anything the king wanted. We know better. As she was known to say, every chance she got,
I know we can do better.
the king knew they must act quickly because soon it would be time to host the biggest meeting of the kingdom. The preparations had to be perfect, so he crowned the new queen. Ya da 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 ya da 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 da. Scene 3, plotting in the courtyard. Now, shortly after being installed as queen, We Can Do Better met her uncle More to Try, the secret leader of the lemonade lovers, in the courtyard. They discussed their hopes for making the kingdom beverage diverse. And the queen said, as she always does,
We can do better.
Yes, we can. There's always more to try. Sweet and tart, hot and cold, coffee, water, tea, and lemonade. All can live in harmony.
and as they stood there together, heads leaning, plotting a way forward, 2 members of the Committee for Confabulation and Contrarianation came around the corner. They didn't see the queen and her uncle, but these plotters were plotting, and here is what the queen and her uncle heard them say.
We don't like anything.
We need to stop them.
We have to make sure that the king fails so we can take over and keep things confused and in committee indefinitely.
Hearing this, Queen We Can Do Better and the noble More to Try slipped away. More to Try, being an open-minded and brave soul, didn't wish the downfall of the king, but instead wished that all would be well in the land. So he decided to make a difference.
I will warn the king's newly appointed safety advisor.
No, please note aside, narrative note aside, West Side aside, the new safety team is in action. And so the safety team came and was reminded to do their job of keeping things safe. Keeping things safe. Keep escorting the troublemakers out of the room. And yay. Ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da. Scene 4. The first big meeting of the kingdom. And so the time came for the first big annual meeting of the kingdom. Queen We Can Do Better had met with the newly formed marketing and aesthetics team to make plans. Please note, the newly formed marketing and aesthetics teams get an aside here, as you will hear in a moment, the Green Sanctuary team. She met with them to make plans. She also had a conference with a committee for keeping things green, who recommended less paper, more composting, and sustainably raised desserts. But meanwhile, the nefarious Haman was getting frustrated. He could see that the king's resolve for coffee was softening, and he knew that they had to take action.
We only want hot and bitter. None of that awful tea, and certainly no lemonade.
He began to plot with his committee to keep things the way they were, to destroy all the lemonade in the kingdom, and to remove all lemonade lovers from the land.
How to make sure they're all gone.
Now, on the night before that first big meeting was scheduled, I think that night must have been March 23rd, because the meeting was on March 24th. So on the night before the big meeting, the king had a hard time sleeping because, well, he'd had too much coffee.
Oh, I can't sleep. I guess I'll read the notes from the safety committee.
And so he read the notes of the safety committee, and he discovered how More to Try had averted a plot against him. Shocked and pleased, the king decided to reward this heroic deed. And the next day, just before the big meeting, he talked to Haman.
Hey, man. If you were in charge, how would you reward your best supporter?
Haman, thinking the king wanted to reward him as the best supporter, and feeling very pleased with himself, said,
I would give him the keys to all the new libraries, the meeting rooms, the classrooms.
Please note, West Side aside, new library. Go ahead.
That would give him power and make him very popular.
Now, the king was very pleased with this answer and decided to make it so. But we can do better, and her uncle More to Try had not yet convinced the king to make the kingdom beverage inclusive, so there was more work to be done. Scene 5, the What's Going Right party. A few weeks later, the queen offered to host a big celebration of all the good things happening in the kingdom to help people feel happy and well-informed before the next and even bigger big meeting, which was scheduled for the following month. Now, I think the What's Going Right party was scheduled for April 7th. Please take note. And the impending big What Shall We Do meeting was to be held in May. Anyway,
I will host a big party to celebrate what is going right in the kingdom. Because, after all, in order to do better, you have to know and appreciate what's already going well. I will meet with the marketing, the aesthetics, and the keeping things green teams to plan the party. This will not be an ordinary party. Times are changing. The weather is warmer. We will need more than hot beverages. We need lemonade and tea.
There's always more to try.
and as the people arrived at the party, including the advisors, they saw not just coffee mugs, but also teacups and lemonade glasses on the tables. Jugs of bright and cold yellow liquid sat in places of equal honor with the hot coffee pitchers, and hot and cold offerings were mingled together. The advisors were outraged.
Hey, man, what are you going to do about this?
But before Haman could confront the king or queen, the king stood up and announced,
My dear people, today I wish to honor and reward a great person who has averted disaster in the kingdom.
Haman, thinking he was about to be rewarded, paused.
Today I want to reward Mordecai for saving us from the tyranny of confabulation and contrariation. Today I give him the keys to all the new rooms we have created in our thriving and growing kingdom.
As the king handed Mordecai a key to these new regions of the realm, Queen We Can Do Better beamed proudly. Haman rushed and raged towards them. Thankfully, the new safety committee was still on hand, escorting the troublemaker out to nonviolent communication training. And so the party went on, with the people enjoying lemonade as well as tea and coffee, both iced and hot. And when the time came a few weeks later for them to have their big "what should we do next" planning meeting, they were ready to envision a bright future for the newly beverage-liberated kingdom.
We should always do what's right and always be willing to find new ways to do it.
Yes, we can always do things better.
Yes, there's always more to try.
And one of the best parts of the big "what should we do next" meeting was the return of Queen Teal, who was welcome back, having read all of the history of the kingdom. And with her, she brought wisdom. Here comes Queen Teal. Here she comes, bringing her wisdom. Having read the history of the kingdom and having learned from the past, safety team, you need to address that issue. Yeah, you need to address that issue. Wow. There's all kinds of safety issues. We can always do better. Here was the wisdom.
Good people, no matter whether you like tea or coffee or water or kombucha or boba or lemonade or soda, you are all welcome here. This is a place where love of beverage itself unites us. We can learn from the past.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
That bickering over such small details does not serve us and only causes strife in the kingdom. Let us connect over this love of beverage with kindness and caring, so that despite our differences, so that our community may thrive.
Let us make that a new slogan of our kingdom. Love unites us. Caring connects us. Our community thrives.
And so it was. From that day forward, they lived this new slogan well, drinking beverages of all sorts. They might even have changed up the room again and again. All sorts of changes were possible. And the community did indeed thrive. And that is the end, or actually just the beginning. And if the players would please come forward, and even if you are a queen candidate and our sign bearer. Because it takes a village. Some of whom were only recruited moments before you all arrived. All right, you all can have a seat. So, the best thing about the days when we do plays is the service is short. And coffee, tea hour, lemonade hour, beverage hour. Beverage time is long. So this is our chance to just share and have fellowship. We will actually have all the beverages available. And what time are we starting the meeting, Linda? 12:30. Wow, 12:30. Let us start it earlier if at all possible. For the Zoom participants, that's a good question. The good question is, we are done so early that we have a whole hour before the congregational meeting would technically start for our Zoom participants. So I guess you're all going to have to eat and drink a lot of tea and lemonade.
We have a quorum already. They were all on the stage.
The quorum was on the stage. The voting quorum was on the stage. So I say let's start our beverage time, and we'll check in and see who's planning. We'll do some checking to see who's going to be here by Zoom. We can check and see if they can come a little early. Any other announcements about our meeting before we start? Linda's raising a hand, yes?
I'm going to say something about what is required of someone to vote.
Thank you, Linda. So in order to vote at the meeting, you have to have been a member for 6 weeks or longer, right? So it's 6 weeks. Yeah, it's 6 weeks. So the actual vote on the budget will be in May 19th, is that right? Our actual final congregational meeting is May 19th. That's when we will vote on the final version of the budget. What will happen between now and then is, as I said, we have our Canvas kickoff on the 7th of April in 2 weeks. During the time between now and the May meeting, we will be planning our financial future for next year, which includes people making their pledges, so we have some kind of a sense of what our finances are going to look like for next year. So if you want to be sure to vote at that May meeting, we are planning a membership event in the next couple of weeks. We'd planned it for a little bit later, but I'm realizing that that doesn't give people 6 weeks. So if you are interested or thinking about actually joining and have not yet joined, please talk to me so that we can figure out how to make sure that you have done that before the 6-week limit to be able to vote at that meeting. Does anybody have any other questions about that? Yeah, Mary.
What are we going to vote on at this meeting?
This meeting is going to be the nominations for the board and the offices. Yeah. Is there anything else we need to vote on, Linda, at this meeting? No, we'll be proposing the preliminary budget. And how about if I give my little spiel about the budget now for those who are present, and we'll do it again. I'll give you a little spiel about the budget now. Just a heads up that we are going to be proposing to you a visionary budget. A budget that is, we have had a pattern in recent years, and this is a good thing for all of us to be thinking about. In times where there is a lot going on in our world that makes us nervous, we have a tendency to contract. And in recent years, we have had challenges with our finances. Right now, we are in a really good place. And this is an opportunity for us to vision forward, for us to think optimistically rather than pessimistically, which is really called for in our world. It's really easy to be pessimistic and fearful and to contract. But as our play demonstrated this morning, we can always keep the attitude that we can do more, that it's possible to do better, that things can change. That's really one of the messages of the story of Queen Esther. That seemingly small, demure, not very imposing person or institution can, with a really positive attitude, make a really big difference. That's kind of the point of the story. So today, when we're talking about the preliminary budget, I'm going to invite and encourage everyone to meet it with that kind of a perspective, instead of the, no, we have to keep things the way they were, it's too scary, to instead say, no, maybe there's a way forward where we can do things we never imagined we could do. So I'm going to invite you to enjoy your beverages of wide variety and diversity for a little while, and we'll be starting, I'm guessing we'll be able to start the meeting a little bit early. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, everyone. Thank you to our players again. Bye.